Jill and Stacy show.
Appreciate everybody coming out today. This is not going to be an overly formal event. This is a fairly informal Q&A type session regarding the Hicks Pike Chambers Road project. A couple things here. For those that don't know me, my name is Chet. I'm a commissioner here in Boone County, so I sit on the county fiscal court. We deal with everything in the unincorporated Boone County area regarding land use, fiscal matters, everything else. Basically, I'm the legislative body of the county. If you think about the legislature at the state level, I'm the legislative element of the county government. With us today, we have Representative Marianne Proctor here as well, and also saw Senator Jay Williams in the room here back there as well. And we have a Union City Council member here as well, so a little representation across the board. Couple things about tonight. I've got in front of me a number of data points that have been brought up from the county survey that was done regarding this project, as well as some traffic information. I've got our comprehensive land use plan projections and some other things. The purpose of tonight is to answer your questions if you have any concerns on this project. And if you don't have the information right now, I got a handy dandy computer here and we'll look up the info right here. This is the time that we have to answer your questions about this project. I don't intend to present a lot of new presentation or information to you tonight. The main purpose is to answer your questions that you might have and kind of put everybody on the same page. I will go over some of the theme questions that we got from the survey that the county sent out. A couple things here. If you did not grab a business card of mine, feel free to. It's got my email on it and my cell number. I will generally answer text and phone calls within a reasonable amount of time of somebody reaching out to me, and emails could be up to a year, but I try to get to the email when I can. I'm just kidding. I respond to emails. I do send out a regular newsletter. You can use that QR code if you want. You can sign up for a newsletter. You can also just send me an email and I can add you to my newsletter. Representative Proctor also has a regular newsletter that she sends out. And I'm giving you all that information because tonight we have, show of hands here, who's from Chambers area or offshoot of Chambers? Who's from the Hicks Pike community and associated Hicks Pike area? Okay. Anybody off of like 42 in that general area of Hicks Pike? Okay. So most people are here to get their questions answered about this particular project. In the room right now, we have a group of individuals that I'm just going to call disruptors that are intending to come here tonight to create some sort of political stunt, political statement, and disrupt our event tonight. I've already warned them in advance that this meeting is for the Hicks Road Chambers Pike meeting. It's for those questions from the residents of this area to get information. If for some reason this group decides to get disruptive, we will simply just shut this down and walk out. And you guys can reach out to us by email or cell phone and get that information. But I hope this group will be respectful of their fellow citizens and will be respectful of your time being here. And will let us have this meeting tonight and answer your questions. As far as the data points and everything, if there's something that comes up, if you think of a question tonight, just go ahead and raise your hand and ask the question. If for some reason we're not able to complete the event tonight, feel free to send your questions to us via email, or you can give me a call on my cell number. A couple things I'll just go over in the beginning then about this project. Some of the questions that we get are, well, why is the state and why is the county thinking about this project? Let me kind of summarize the proposal. This is a collaborative discussion. No decision has been made. This is a collaborative discussion between the state and KYTC District 6 and the county regarding Hicks Pike and Chambers Road. And did everybody get this info on? I'll bring it up later if we need to. If you can see this, we're talking about Hicks Pike, obviously, that runs from 42 all the way down to Richwood, and then Chambers Road, which is south, which runs from Richwood over to 25. They're very similarly length roads. They're by mile. They're very similar in length, similar type of traffic. They both connect a state highway routes. You have state and state with a county road in between, state and state with a county road in between. So they're very similar in type when it comes to the roads. The state has indicated that at some point they are going to improve throughput from this intersection in Richwood across to 42. They are going to increase throughput from this intersection to 42 just because of the projections of development that we have in our long-term comprehensive plan. Everybody know what the comp plan is? You may not know what the comp plan is. So our county, we have an associated agency called the Boone County Planning and Zoning Commission. It's not a department of the county. It's actually their own independent agency, and they do all of our long-term planning for the county. They project out what we think our development needs will be, along with our, where we think that development should be. That's what this map over here actually shows. These colors are not what it is today. It's what we project it to be in 20 years, or 15 years now, I guess. That's the 2040 plan. So this agency its purpose is to project out our plan and then also evaluate proposals that come through against that plan. Contrary to popular opinion, we actually use this plan and the associated traffic plan to project what our transportation, we think our projection, or we think our traffic needs are going to be in the future. So in conjunction with KYTC, the county, and our Planning and Zoning Commission, we have had discussions about, well, what do we want this future area, this southern part of the county, what do we want this future area to kind of look like in 2045, so 20 years from now? And one of the things that we have said very clearly on the record in the county is that we want the southern and western portions of the county to remain more rural, lower density, kind of a state-type feel areas. Our dense population areas are going to be more on the east side of the county along the highway and associated tributaries. Problem is that that's been the plan for a while, and we're now getting to the point where we're starting to touch that mixing line of that higher density and that lower density. We do not like the idea of Richwood here going from the highway all the way down past those gorgeous Richwood farms, past the two graveyards, that old church there on the corner of Richwood, etc. We don't like the idea of that turning into a 5-lane or 4-lane superhighway all the way down to 42 and opening up all that space for development in a higher density. When the state looks at this stuff and they're going to put a lot of money in these projects, they're looking at what's my future return on investment in terms of economic development, etc. So what's a good alternative? A good alternative is to get some of that throughput from Richwood to 42 and vice versa, but creating kind of a natural north-south deviation between your higher density and your more moderate density developments. So we have proposed, and when I say we, in full transparency, this was my idea. So I was the one that asked for this to be looked into. It ends up being the worst thing on the planet, I guess I'm the one blame. But the whole court has to vote on it. I'll hang my hat on that one. The whole court has to vote on it. But we have discussed with the Planning Commission that, hey, look, let's just say hypothetically that we improve the safety of Hicks Pike. We straighten it, we leveled it, we improve the throughput, we calm traffic, etc., kind of turn this into more of a boulevard-type neighborhood feel road. We would like to see, or we recognize that people are likely going to develop off of Hicks Pike. Now, that's going to happen no matter what, theoretically. Theoretically, this farm could stay a farm forever, and the family can continue farming. But there's no way to guarantee that. The way things are going, it's not likely to be the case, right? It's likely to get developed at some point. We have made it very clear that we do not want to see any connection between Hicks Pike and Richwood Road. No throughput connection from Hicks Pike to Richwood Road, but that the developments that come off of Hicks Pike will be our kind of our mixing line where our higher density, like triple crown density type developments would be, and that anything in the future that comes off of Richwood would be our lower density, more estate-sized lot, and that becomes our natural dividing line, implementing what we have said in our comp plan we want to see. Obviously, a lot of things can change over time, but that's just kind of our long-term thought on the area. Now, the main impetus behind Hicks Pike, it may sound like the impetus was throughput, but that's not. The impetus behind Hicks Pike is safety. Say Hicks Pike is a dangerous road, just the way it's designed. We expect traffic to increase over time. It's just going to make that road worse. In fact, on the way here, I was driving down Hicks Pike, and I was kind of driving a little bit slow, taking pictures of some houses and things that might be potentially impacted by this as I was going. And I had cars, a bunch of cars stacked up behind me, so I had to speed up. Well, I ended up seeing a guy sitting in his driveway throwing a frisbee with his dog. I pulled in there. At first, he wanted to fight me because he didn't know who I was. But then we started talking a little bit about Hicks Pike and stuff. And he said, look, I moved here 10 years ago. This was a nice country road. Now, it's a freaking nightmare. It's a drag strip. People are driving like crazy through here. Just sitting in his driveway talking to him, there are probably 30 or 40 cars drove by. So we know traffic is increasing. The counts from 2024 was about 3,105. That was the daily average, so 3,100 cars per day down Hicks Pike. And we expect at least a 2% increase every year over time. That's kind of our projection. And anything that gets developed in this area between now and then is only going to make that worse. We expect, issued in here, Publix is opening on Wednesday. When Publix opens up here, we expect there to be some level of additional traffic almost immediately. It's going to start picking up along Hicks Pike and running to access this commercial area. Not only is Publix going in, but St. E's is putting a office building right next to that. I think their original designs that I saw may have shown some other outbuildings on the same property closer to or some other type of commercial development. And then right here, northeast of this roundabout on that property there's going to be some additional restaurants and other commercial property. All of that has been theoretically approved at some point in the future. So we do anticipate a draw of residential traffic from the Union side towards these commercial developments as they start to fill in. Addressing some of the, actually just to go back, the main point I wanted to make there was that this is a conversation between KYTC District 6, the county and our county engineering group, and our Planning and Zoning Commission, including their long-range planning group, and this will be part of the conversation when we start looking into our transportation plan updates here in what day, Jay?
Well, every 2 years we come out with a 2-year plan. It's a 6-year plan, 10-year plan, but we fund 2 years at a time. So next year we'll be funding this. This was a project we looked at, and it's mostly federal funds to connect them, but we have to provide matching funds. So we got to fund state matching funds. It's the state that funds almost all these roads up there, and we try to optimize federal dollars. That's what this is. Trying to optimize, get federal dollars to do 80% of it. Because the feds want to connect 42 to 25, because everybody looks at the interstates running north and south, but part of the interstate system, the feds have interest in the east-west connectors, so you can get to the interstate. That's why they'll fund those. And it's in some cases.
So one of the comments we get a lot of these in these feedback questionnaires is, well, just don't do it at all. It's unrealistic that this is not going to happen. This is going to happen to some degree. Some level of improvement is needed at some point. But like Senator Williams mentioned, we have an opportunity to have county input on what this looks like because we're doing this trade, and we have the opportunity to utilize additional funding to help get it done. It's not going to be a cheap project to get.
Make a comment. The time frame. If we get this done and we can put it in the 2-year plan, the next time for design, it's probably still going to be a year. Fastest it can happen is 6 years before it gets going. Usually
6 to 8 years.
6 to 8 years before you're actually
we actually start working.
Before they break the ribbon and you got the roads. But the design will be 2 years. And then they got to do property acquisition, utilities relocation. It usually takes about 2 years. And then they can start building them, which usually is going to take a couple years. That's sort of the rule.
It's not an overnight fix.
That's why you got to get ahead of it.
What's the process to get this one done?
Yeah. And if you have any questions, just go ahead and ask them. I mean, we don't have to, this is not a formal presentation. This is I'm just kind of going to go through some things I have here. Formal process for getting it done, it's actually a lot simpler than it sounds. The fiscal court would need to vote on a resolution to initiate that trade between KYTC and the county. And then KYTC, and don't school me on the whole process, Jay, I'm just saying that at some point KYTC then has to agree to whatever it is that we propose, and I think that goes all the way to the Transportation Secretary has final sign off on that. So
And that's likely, that's just going to happen sometime in the next year?
I would say in the next 2 to 4 weeks is when the county would like to take a vote on it. After this one. Yes, ma'am.
You said you were driving down, expecting it potentially impacted properties. Which ones are they?
Well, we haven't seen a design, right? So we have no idea what the design is going to look like. We know that the goal is from a safety perspective, so there's going to be some level of straighten and some level of, Humpty-Doo. It's in the state's best interest, by the way. This is not a combative experience between the county and the state, right? We do a lot of road work, a lot of road projects together. It's in both parties' best interest to have an outcome that we both like, right? Now, technically, at the end of the day, the state may have the ability to trump us on certain things and just say this is the way it's going to be, whether you like it or not. But these are just normal, everyday people, and most of them live in our county. So I mean, there's a reason for us to work together on these projects. So I can't tell you what project or what houses or properties would be impacted. What I can tell you is if the state does a project, they are most likely to put in one of those multi-use paths that people can use, walk on, bike, etc. And from a land use standpoint, it makes sense for that to be on the northern side of Hicks Pike simply because that's where all the houses are that are going to utilize that bike path. There's already a right-of-way there, and the state, because they don't have, the more they deviate from the right-of-way, the more property they have to buy, right? They're buying property from people is what they have to do. So they're going to stay, I would think, roughly in the same general line of where Hicks Pike is, depending on where the straightening and everything else has to happen. Now, that doesn't mean that that's the way it could be. It could be that the multi-use path ends up on the other side where it's lower density and there's less houses impacted. But even like right here where you drive, first off, we drive down this direction, down near Richwood Road. I mean, this is already a flat hill, and even though it looks on this map like it's super, super close, there's actually quite a bit of space between Hicks Pike and the houses there. And we are not talking about putting in a 5-lane highway here. The proposal that was discussed with KYTC that we like, they like, everybody likes, is currently a 2-lane road. It's keeping it a 2-lane road, but improving it to more of a boulevard type feel. So 2-lane road with right-hand turn lanes and or roundabouts at your neighborhood connections. So we would anticipate theoretically as a minimum a roundabout here at Harrison Way and a roundabout here at Manowar Boulevard, something like that, depending on whatever their traffic safety study stuff, indicates that they need. And that those by themselves are traffic calming devices, right? They kind of lower the speed limit of the road by default. And I forget what else I was going to say with that one, but so that's kind of the next steps is the fiscal court has to vote on it. I expect that to come up fairly soon.
Okay, this is probably a ways out before you might be able to answer this question. I'm going to ask it anyway. We had recently moved here when they started talking about redoing the Richwood Road exit, and the biggest concern people had was they kept talking about the Mount Zion exit the amount of time. And they had put language into those contracts that, incentives to get it done on time and losing money if they didn't. Would they consider something like that for this too, so that it doesn't take forever and a day once they get started? And also, is this going to be giving you more of a, because there's some areas, like you said, it's a dangerous road. There's areas where if you go off the road, you're off the road. You're in trouble. Are they going to be widening the area breakdown area off to the left and right of the road?
I imagine there's going to be some level of shoulder involved, but it could be like curbs or something like that that gives it more of that residential type feel. I don't know. We have not gotten to design phase yet. I don't want to promise anything.
And there's that other area where you go around, where they've got the guardrails. That's a scary spot, where you go around.
Being the guy that's about had a truck in his living room.
Where Ridgewood Church comes out, I think is
Yeah.
where she's talking.
Oh.
Well, the curves.
The curve with the guardrails,
Yeah.
and, yeah, that's, I mean, if I see somebody coming, I slow down and let them go through, because it's all
No,
looks
Hicks
not
Pike's
beautiful
a
too.
dangerous road. It is what it is.
Yeah.
In fact, I had the traffic data from the last few years here, and Hicks Pike has twice the level of collisions that Chambers Road does. Again, there's similar roads, et cetera. So, sorry, somebody else had a question.
Chet, when we had the meeting a month or so ago at church, if I remember correctly, I heard somebody say that either way, and maybe you even said this tonight, either way, Hicks Pikes is going to get improved, whether it's owned by the county or whether the county keeps it or whether it goes to the state. So if the county were to keep it and not do this trade, what would be the reasoning? Or not the reason, what would Hicks Pike look like? What in your guys' mind it would look like before you brought the idea of this trade to the?
I think that the end design would be similar to what we're already proposing, right? So the county's already mentioned, here are the things that we want to see out of this. So whatever, if we were to design it ourselves, which I don't even know that that's how it would work, but if we were to design it ourselves, it's going to look something like that. That's what we want to see, right? We anticipate all of this being residential. There's no commercial proposed anywhere near this. This is all going to be residential. If you've driven up Triple Crown Boulevard and stuff like this, I mean, that's a more residential feel, right? This is going to be definitely a better, more improved road, wider, et cetera, than that. But we want a similar type of a feel. We don't want another pathway road. Or something
So,
like that.
What I'm hearing you say then, if it's not going to change that much, it really is about who pays for it. Is that really what it boils down to?
I think it's more access to funding is a better way to say it. Like, I think the state can actually, even if we maintain ownership, the state could theoretically come in and probably we would get money for it from the state, but we're not going to have access to federal funding, and it's harder for the state to do this stuff if they don't own it. When they go to apply for federal funds, if they don't own it, it's easier.
I can just tell you, this is a very expensive project, and the state is not likely to be able to pay 100% of that project, no matter what you do. Because in Northern Kentucky, almost anything, it's 50% of the cost of the project is land acquisition. And so you're going to have to buy that right away. So that's what we're trying to do, is to get this so that the federal guys, and there's another, Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, that has to pass off on this to get federal money in. That's really the only way we can afford. I don't know, he's the county guy, I don't know the county guy, but I don't know any county that could afford to do this on its own.
It's going to be really expensive. Like, we want state and federal funding on this from a transportation standpoint.
Can I just ask a question? So one of the things you guys have asked me, are these footpaths on either side, right? So Senator Williams, this is going to be a kind of a deal buster in some ways. Do we really need two 10-foot footpaths on either side of Hicks? And I know that's a federal requirement. I think that's going to be a sticking point for the people, and I think it's a valid concern.
One of the, when we talked to KYTC, when we were discussing it, it was one side.
Yeah, they were saying back in the past they had down two sides. You got to have that multi-use path, which makes sense on that one side. I think we can get federal funding with that one path. But there's going to have to be a path. If you take federal funding, you get some of the rules. Now, some of the rules may change, okay, because we got a different administration. Back to your contract, 3 years from now, there'll be a different governor. I have no control of it, even as a state legislator, how that bid is led and what incentives are given. The governor at the time will decide the incentives, okay? So these things change, but this is all, what we got to do is get the federal money in. because we can't build it without that federal money.
People like to complain all the time about developments that go in, saying, well, why don't you build the roads first and then do the developments? I mean, this is what pre-planning road infrastructure looks like, you know, for those people out there.
So if we don't do the swap, it's not just money that's a problem, it's timing too, because if we don't do the swap, then you're not going to be able to, as a county, not going to be able to do it as fast as we will if there's a swap, right?
I would get. So a lot of what I'm going to say today has an asterisk on it, and that is we have a lot of unknowns. And this is just what I'm arguing, my opinions, what I'm trying to push forward, what I have a say in, that kind of thing. But I could definitely say that if we don't do this with swap, it will definitely be longer before we get it done.
Can I also jump in on that too? So my talks with Judge Moore on that, that was one of my priorities, is Hicks and Richwood, to get the design on that. He told me that it's going to be $20 to $25 million to do Hicks. The county doesn't have the money. And he said that the state won't even do the funding for the design if we don't do the swap, because the county's not going to be able to finish it. So what I put in goes from the roundabout at Triple Crown out to Hicks to do something with that, and then to start going up Hicks. So there's money in this, correct me if I'm wrong, Senator Williams, but isn't there money in that biennium for that project specifically for design?
Yeah, okay, the budget, we have a road plan, and there's not money there. It's in the plan, but the Senate funded $900 million in the general fund to go in the road plan that would have funded this road. But during negotiations with the House, they cut it to $450 million. So the plan is still there. It's still in there, but there's no money to do it. So they got to prioritize because they only have half the money. So it's in the plan, but it's, again, the current governor that decides what gets prioritized. And they're not going to prioritize a county road, period, okay? If it becomes a state road, so this is the thing, but it's a current governor, and that's why the legislature likes to fully fund the plans, because then we can say, we put this in the plan, it's going to start down the process, but when we cut out half the money, then it's all up to the governor, and there's only so much we can do as legislators or local officials.
So one of the things that I kind of want to zero in on here too is again, this has been talked about for a long time. This needs to be done, or we recognize it. So a project may or may, is likely to occur at some point regarding this. What we're really talking about in the short term is, do we make the swap between the state and county? What are the implications there? So Representative Proctor did bring up the space, or the distance between this roundabout and Hicks Pike. Anything that happens here will include that portion of Richwood as well. That's the main corridor there. This may end up being a roundabout or half-about or whatever they call it, something down here. But there's going to be some level of improvement theoretically on that space on Richwood as well.
So that's all inclusive, not separate?
Yeah, I would think it's all going to be part of the same project.
Okay.
Just a quick question, Chet. When we do this swap, we're getting better funds, we're getting timing. Do we lose any control over the road, down the road, because of the swap? So there's stuff that we're not going to
So
say anymore.
there's obviously, the state owns a state road.
Right.
The county owns a county road. There are some things that we do on state roads for the state because we have better equipment, more people, et cetera. One of those examples is like snow removal and treatment. The county does that for the state and most of the state roads in our area. But the state would be responsible for maintaining it. So let's go to some of the feedback. One of the questions was, Chambers is an absolutely crappy road. Why would we trade Hicks if the state owns Chambers and it looks the way it does? So when the state builds a road, they build it to a standard, and it's projected based on projected use, etc. Chambers is one of those roads that it wasn't exactly built to a standard, right? It's just been a road, and it kind of has existed. It's ended up in the system. The state owns it, but it's not like the state came in and said, we're going to build a road to this standard. It just is there. So you can't really equate Chambers and its condition and maintenance to Hicks Pike post-improvement. This is a different road, different standard, etc. Now, Do we lose control of the road? Yes. Hicks Pike becomes a state road. But we have an input on the development of the project, what it looks like. We have a say in that because this is a swap that we're initiating and we have some interest in it. Do they have final say? Sure. Well, the same applies to Chambers, right? They have final say on anything that happens down there. And one of the concerns from the Chambers community is the tunnel that goes under the highway, right? We don't want to see the tunnel shut off. Well, the reality on that one is today, if anything happens around that, we have no say because it's a state road, and it's a federal highway. If we trade, we still may have no say, but we at least have a seat at the table because it's a county road at that point. The current proposal would be to run basically like a flyover bridge over the top, is what the state likes the best, where you take the lowest part in the whole area and then make it the highest part in the whole area. For some reason that makes sense to them, but whatever. That's a different issue. Yeah, so we'll have to see what happens there. But right now there's no money to widen 71. There's nothing right now that says 71's going to get widened and that tunnel's going to get shut off. Could pop back up again in the future, but right now there's nothing. Yes, sir.
I got, I guess, a question, I was just wondering, when is this swap going to take place? And I don't have a problem with the county maintaining it. They do a good job on Hutton Drive, so that's not an issue. But the road's in dire shape, and we see constant truck traffic, and most of it's local. The gravel trucks, as you probably know, you live on it, they destroy the road in about a year. It's constantly, it's just, the road bed is not made for the heavy traffic that we see on it.
So let's talk about trucks.
Yeah, you can put restrictions on it, but who's going to enforce it, you know?
So let's talk about trucks.
It's a real problem.
So we do see truck traffic on Chambers, but just so you know, there has been not a single complaint about trucks to the county in the last year on Chambers. It's kind of sporadic. It comes and goes in waves. Part of the reason, there's a couple reasons why we see truck traffic on Chambers. One is you can't see it, it's not on this map, but over here, Kenton County has a massive industrial development they're doing over here. The gravel pit where they get all of their gravel for these projects is down 42. And all of the gravel trucks that go from there to there come up 42, cut across Ridgewood, and then cut across Chambers. If we trade, we can weight limit that road and say no gravel trucks, or no trucks at all on Chambers Road. Now there's another type of traffic, truck traffic, that ends up on Chambers, and that is when the highway gets all locked up. You have truck traffic that ends up coming down Ridgewood Road and then down Chambers to try to avoid this blockage on the highway, right? So they end up down on Chambers, or they go all the way down to 42, and they try to pop out on the other side to avoid truck traffic. Some of them might be trying to avoid the way station with scales too, I don't know. But they come down that route. Most of them are coming south, not north. We don't see a ton of semi-truck traffic that turns left on Chambers coming north. So theoretically, let's go hypothetically and say, what if we shut down, or what if we traded? What if Chambers becomes county road, we put signs up, no trucks, but now Hicks Pike is a state road, and theoretically trucks are allowed on state roads up to 80,000 pounds. Two things. One, there's actually nothing that's keeping a truck off of Hicks Pike already. If they want to drive on it, they can. We have no physical barriers. It comes down to enforcement only. It's a reactionary type thing. We also have had no real complaints about Hicks Pike, except for at this intersection down here at Richwood where they get all jacked up. So the point is it doesn't matter who owns the road, there's always a chance an idiot's going to end on there that's not supposed to be there. So let's think about why they would be on this road in the first place. If people are trying to come to all of this commercial or this industrial development over here, Chambers makes sense. They need to traverse, or they can traverse Chambers to get over there. If they can't, where are they going to go? They're actually not going to come all the way up 42 and go down Hicks Pike. They're just going to take Richwood to Chambers and then keep taking Richwood across to 25 to access those industrial developments. There's access roads here on the other side of the highway, 25, et cetera, to get to those industrial developments. The path of least resistance for your gravel trucks and your semi-trucks trying to get to that industrial park is through Richwood, for anybody that's going north. For anybody that's going south, the same applies at Mount Zion. Mount Zion is your southern getting off point to access either to avoid the highway traffic or to access everything on the other side. There's really no reason why. Now, I can't say positively you'll never see a truck on Hicks Pike, but there's really no reason for a commercial vehicle, a large, heavy tonnage vehicle to be on that road. A couple things. First off, it doesn't matter whether it's a county or state road, those trucks are still allowed to be on that road if they are going to a destination that uses that road as an access point. So like a cement truck, a gravel truck, a delivery truck, if they're accessing one of these properties down here that uses Hicks Pike, they can already get on the road. It doesn't matter how heavy they are. So you're really talking about through traffic. Well, there is no commercial anything that draws traffic from here to there. Everything that is currently in place is residential, and everything planned for the next 20 years is residential in this entire area between Mount Zion and Richwood. So I can't tell you there will never be a truck on that road, but there's really no reason for a commercial vehicle to transit Hicks Pike. If we make it a boulevard type road with roundabouts or stop signs, etc., it's even more of a deterrent for a commercial vehicle to be down that road. The benefit is, you end up with a commercial vehicle on Hicks Pike right now, it's an actual logistics problem. As you guys have seen, we've had to tow trucks out of the ditch down there at the end. However, once it's improved, if you end up with one on there, it may be a nuisance, but it's not a traffic issue. Does that make sense? And again, I can't tell you it'll never happen, but it was brought up today as an example, or earlier at one point, last couple of days. Well, what about Publix? Because Publix is going to put another one on Farmview. They're going to put another location on Farmview and Union. And the way Publix does their deliveries is why they do I'm repeating what somebody else told me. The reason why they do their 5-store clusters like this is because their deliveries that come in, they'll stop at all of those stores. So now you have the potential, and this does make sense, that you'd have a Publix truck stopping here and then going up Hicks Pike to get to the Farmview location when they're doing deliveries. So I talked to the store manager and the regional director for Publix today and said, glad you're here. This is my number one concern, is that your trucks are going to end up on Hicks Pike. What can we do to fix it? He said, if you have a concern about that, we can work with our logistics team to ensure they don't end up on Hicks Pike. So as a minimum, we're going to have that conversation, and we're going to pre-plan with Publix to make sure that their trucks don't access Hicks Pike as a regular corridor.
I have one more question.
Yes, sir.
The county takes Chambers. Are you going to leave the tunnel open?
So we, again, as far as the county's concerned, we want the tunnel to stay open. As a first choice is the tunnel stays open. Second choice is east-west access is maintained between.
I know Senator said something about it. But
Yeah, the problem is
that in the foreseeable future?
It's not in the immediate foreseeable future that we're going to shut the tunnel down. It doesn't mean it won't happen. There is a scenario where it does, and even if we own Chambers, it doesn't mean that we're going to have a say or any ability to influence it. But if it's a county road, I would say we have more of a say than we do if it's a state road.
Do you think this is going to bring up the question again of the elementary school having a road out the backside?
So, you're talking here. So this is this current elementary school. You're talking about access.
Great National Boulevard in
Yeah,
Chambers,
okay.
yeah.
So, not to throw anybody under the bus, figuratively speaking.
It is a pun.
But
Well, because one of the things that was brought up before, I'm sorry to interrupt, one of the things that was brought up before, and nothing's been done about it, is that the lake there, that road there that goes over that lake, they said it's not really, it was not really created for that kind of weight traffic. And I don't know if they
For any
ever
buses.
looked into that. A
You
lot
talking
of
about
buses
this?
going
You
in.
talking about this?
Steeplechase has
Steeplechase.
reservoir lakes.
Oh,
Yeah,
gotcha,
and
gotcha.
so that's why they had asked for an exit out of there that would go out the other way.
There's a lot of reasons why they said that they've asked for it. Like I said, I'm not gonna throw anybody under the bus, but I was told, years ago that, no, there's no way we're ever gonna connect that, it's never gonna happen, but it turns out that's been the plan the whole time, is to connect Grand National down here. Personally, I'm opposed to it, I don't wanna see circular traffic through
Well, I
here.
think it will bring more traffic into our neighborhood.
You will.
There's
Like,
also
right
rumor of
past
a
my
bus
house.
barn going in there, but they're a little cloudy on that
Yeah,
one too. so.
a lot of conversations still to be had on that particular topic. But I think one of the rumors was that they were talking about putting additional schools in here. And I don't know that that's not the case, but I'm pretty sure it's not
I
because
heard
there's
a
not enough
rumor
space
of a bus
there.
barn too, a bus lot.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so yeah, we're kind of running out of a little bit of time here, but I want to address a couple other concepts or issues that people have brought up. One of them is, what about maintenance, state maintenance versus county maintenance? And what about chambers? Why would the county take over a road that looks as crappy as it does? Part of the negotiation, the transfer would be that the state would have to bring chambers up to a certain maintenance point. So that would be part of the negotiation, and they're not opposed to doing that. And secondly, again, if you look at current newly constructed state roads, maintenance is fine. It's the old roads that have just been around forever that's really a problem, right? So I don't think that's going to be a problem in terms of maintenance. So a lot of people have commented about, hey, just stop the development, stop the development, stop the development. Like, there's no real way. There's no way to just stop development completely, nor do we want to do that. It's more about, can we kind of direct development where we like to see it? And that's why I talked earlier about the whole, southern and western part of the county. We've always said and planned for years and years and years that that's what we want to kind of remain more lower density and rural. Well, now we're there. We've been marching that direction, but now we're there at the mixing line. So the conversation is going to get a little bit more specific now. So this kind of helps us direct traffic. We would bring chambers up. We'd ask them to bring it up to a certain maintenance point. The survey that went out from the county was a little bit misleading. So somebody says, well, why are you asking for everybody's input for or against the project? That was a mistake, I think, in my opinion. We weren't specifically asking people, do you want it or do you not want it? What we were asking for was, what are your concerns if it was to happen, so we could try to mitigate those concerns. Not to say that the input's not valuable, that we didn't want to hear everybody's input, but what a lot of our feedback was just yes or no. Well, that's not real helpful in the conversation about how do we mitigate everybody's concerns. Going back, I want to just reiterate again the comments about trucks. That's been a real contentious point with folks. And I don't know how to explain it any better, but both us and county engineering, the county engineering group have indicated, like we've sat down and looked at it, we've looked at specific properties, we've looked at commercial area, and we have no reason to think that that is going to increase any truck traffic on that road measurably. Will you end up with one? Like, I don't want this to happen, have somebody come back here 10 years and say, we said we're never going to get a truck on there. It could happen, but it's not likely to draw much commercial traffic because all of our projected growth in the area is residential for the future. You might see residential traffic, that's what we're trying to mitigate here.
Chet, I know you're running out of time. One other question, again, that came up the other night. If I remember correctly, there was some discussion about minor improvements on Hicks, even if the swap does take place, for the major improvement. So making it a little safer, maybe a little wider, or more safety on each side.
I don't think you're going to see anything that's going to require much or significant capital investment. I'm not sure. I can't say exactly because, again, that's a state road. As a minimum, the house right there by the guardrail that looks like a truck went right through his living room, something's going to happen there. Has to happen at some point. The other thing is the sign that's up here at Hicks Pike and 42 that says no trucks actually doesn't say no trucks. It says don't follow GPS. So we've had that conversation with the state too. It said, you know, it's a state road. They can't say no trucks. But they might turn a blind eye to the fact that that sign is still there because it doesn't say no trucks. And it might still just stay there saying, be advised, don't go down this route.
Could that be part of the negotiation?
It already is.
You can have a no GPS on a state road.
Which is what that one says.
Yeah. That can be a state road, that's fine.
Yep, that's what it says.
I think my biggest concern is you mentioned that the people on Chambers Road, and you specifically want a seat at the table if the swap goes through and it becomes a county road. And just for the record, somebody that lives off of Hicks, I'd like a seat at the table to have a say in what happens to Hicks Pike. And I'm afraid if the swap goes through, my seat at the table I'll be dismissed. And I think that's my biggest concern.
To alleviate those concerns, what I would say is, again, there's a lot of benefit to the state working with us on these things, right? There's no reason for it to be a hostile relationship between the state and the county. We do work with each other on all of these projects. Most of us have them on speed dial. We talk all the time about various things. So as a representative of you in this conversation, you are still going to have your voice there. It's just they own the road versus us owning the road. All of these roads that come off of it are county roads, so we are in vested interest in this as well.
I just wanted to mention when they're looking at putting the roundabouts in, at the roundabout at Ridgewood Road and Hicks, that'll be a roundabout, I assume, probably.
Assume, yeah. I don't know for sure.
And then two more would be at Man of War, and then the last one would be at Harrison and Bridal Gate. When you come off of Ridgewood Road and take a right on Hicks, the very first entrance to Triple Crown is that patio section home where Santos Drive is. And when more traffic starts coming through there, I just kind of wanted it noted that you may need to look at least a stop sign or something right there, because it is a lot to jot out, to turn left even at times of day now, but it's certainly doable. No
And
problems.
here's the
But
thing too, so they look, when anybody's doing those types of things, there's two variables that are coming in. One is, can we keep traffic moving? And another is, sometimes, can we slow traffic down?
Yeah.
So the choice between a roundabout and a stop sign is often, are we trying to speed up traffic or are we trying to slow down traffic?
Right.
But again, what they'll do is they'll do a study of the whole area and projected use. They'll come up with a design. The design's not final. Sometimes they'll come up with multiple designs and kind of bounce it around between interested parties, what makes the most sense. There's going to be a lot more conversation on this between now and the next 6 to 8 years before it gets implemented. And you never know. A lot of people that are opposed to it today, 5 years from now when traffic is, there's a zillion cars going through there, it might be a raise the white flag and say it's time, we got to do something. I don't know. Right now the conversation is about whether or not we trade. As far as I can tell, it's a win-win across the board on the trade. Like, there really aren't a whole lot of reasons why the county or the state would not want to do that trade in the short term. That's really the feedback I think we're looking for.
Guys, I'm just going to see if we do have a couple more questions. The library is gracious. We're supposed to be out of here by 7:30. I told them 7:45. So if we could just kind of do some questions. All of us are willing to continue to have these conversations with you. It's just I don't want to go to that library and not let us come back again. So if we can just
If you do have Representative Proctor's info, my info. If you think of another question, send me an email, send me a text, call me. We may do a couple more of these to just kind of answer questions as they go along. Actually, just to go back to the very beginning, we didn't have to do this. There's no reason why we have to be here. We're doing it because we know you guys and we know you're interested, and we're trying to be as transparent as possible about this project so that you know what's going on. Nobody's trying to hide anything. We want you guys to be fully informed as much as we are on this project. So if you do think of something else, again, like I said, we are out of time. If you think of something else, feel free to send me an email, call me, we can go grab coffee, you're in Bourbon, we can do bourbon, whatever you want to do.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Use your brain and do your research.